Okay, here's a simplified explanation of how we can create the coasters. First, I'm going to create a square, holding down the Shift and Control to keep this square. Then I'm going to select it and change it to a path. Now I'm going to resize that to 3.8 inches. That's the size we know we want our coasters to be. Then I'm going to duplicate this a couple of times and just set it aside. We'll use that for our acetate and for our contrast color background. Pressing Control D twice and just moving these out of the way, just so we'll remember what they are. I'm going to change this one to a light gray for the acetate. This one to a bright red for the background. Now we're going to take this tile and we're going to put a design over it so that we can work with it. So I'm going to import my design. We're going to use this orchid design. I'm going to place that over this square. Select both of them. Center them. So now we have our design centered on our square. With both of these selected, we're going to repeat a process 8 times. We're going to duplicate it, then we're going to inset the design only. We're going to select the design and inset it. And then we're going to duplicate the next one, inset it. And we'll get progressive insets this way. So we'll do it about 8 times. Okay. So again, we're going to select both. We're going to duplicate it, Control D. Click off to deselect. Select just the design and use a Control open parent to inset it 1 time. Then select the tile along with it. Duplicate both of these. Select just the design, inset. Select both. Duplicate. Select the design, inset. Select both. And duplicate. Select the design and inset. Select both. Duplicate. Select the design and inset. We can see that we're starting to lose our detail here. I think I'm going to stop at this point because we won't need any more of these designs. If we go any further, that detail is going to be completely lost. Our background won't show through and it just won't look as good. So I'm going to stop there. We probably didn't need to do it a full 8 times, but that's fine. What we have here will work. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take the top set. I'm going to do a Control minus on it and move it into place. And you can see what we in here. So this is our, let's just put it here. And we'll again select both, Control minus to do a difference on the path, and move this into place. I have snapping on so that it moves into place more nicely. Again, both, Control minus, and move into place. Select both, Control minus, and move into place. Select both, Control minus, and move into place. Select both, Control minus, and move into place. Okay, so that's all of our design cutouts. We're going to duplicate just the tile another 3 times just to keep the thickness of our coasters consistent. So I'll just use this one. And we will duplicate that 3 times, 1, 2, 3. move these into place. And change the color. One way to do that is to select all three of these. Press D to change the color, and just click. We're going to go back up to our selector tool. Now, just to make things easier, I'm going to select all of these and move it to the 0 point on the X and Y. And when I cut these in Design Space, I'd like a little space between each of these squares. So I'm going to put about 2/100 of an inch between. To do that, I'm going to move the center row and down 0.02 inches, the bottom row down 0.04 inches, and then do the same thing with the columns. So I'm going to take those, and I want to move them down 0.02, so I can just do a plus 0.02 tab, and that moves that down. Actually, I made a mistake there. I want that at 0. I'm moving down for the row, so plus 0.02. Okay. Then we're going to do 0.04 down on this last row. Then for each of the columns, we're going to move in the X direction. We don't need to move the first column. We'll move the second column over plus 0.02, and the third column over plus 0.04. Okay, now we have just a little bit of space between our pieces so that when we take it over to Design Space, if we want to, we can just attach, and they'll be positioned nicely for our 12 by 12 inch sheet of cardstock. Now, sometimes you'll want to change the top color on your design. If so, take this tile and duplicate it. This will be the one with the thinnest lines in between and the thickest parts that are cut out. I'm just going to duplicate that, and I'm going to change the color so we'll know that that's the top piece that we wanted to have as a contrasting color. So we're pretty much ready to go. You can change the colors of them if you want, or just save it. So I can just save it. I've already set it as my name. The second thing I want to do is to save a copy. This is important. If you are taking it into Design Space, you need to make sure that you have a plain SVG version. And I'm just going to add a dash plain. It's just a convention I've adopted, so I remember to change it to plain when I save it. And now we have both versions saved. I also want to show you a couple of other little tricks. One is on the document properties. If you're going to be importing into Design Space, these are the settings I recommend. A scale of 72 units per inch is very important. I like to use a display in inches, and I also enjoy using a custom size for the orientation as 11.5 inches, and we're going to use inches as our user unit. So all of those are important, and when you bring it into Design Space, that will be very helpful. Also, if you're in Design Space, don't have any layers. Be very careful about that. Don't have any groups. If you do have groups, before you save as a plain SVG, please be sure to ungroup and then regroup immediately before saving. Do that for any groups that you have in your file. If you do that, Design Space will play nice. If you don't, you're going to get weird sizing and everything else in your Design Space. It's going to be very confusing. So that's pretty much it. One last thing I want to show you is that if you want to change your inset for your design, I'm using 200ths of an, sorry, a quarter of a millimeter as mine. You can come up to Edit, Preferences, Behavior, Steps, and right here, Inset, Outset, and Buy. You can set how much you want to inset and outset by. I'm just going to close that. So I hope that's helpful and that you'll enjoy making your own designs.